The pipeline. Down the old hatch. The very special journey. Be the reason iDubbbz could as to why all of us became bigoted and racist today.
I like how this BS is only being applied to iDubbbz and edgy video makers on YouTube. Why is it that millions of people grew up watching Mad TV, South Park, and all the shock comedy of the 90s and Y2K, and they somehow became normal productive citizens?
Perhaps a secret trick from the right side of the force iDubbbz was using upon us, and turned all of us into powerful racists.
I'll be one of the first to admit, iDubbbz was one of the main reasons I fell into the alt-right pipeline and ended up getting suspended from school for how out-of-pocketed and bigoted I was. Anyone who thinks iDubbbz did not have a serious negative effect on youth is simply wrong.
Under this logic, also believe this individual would that affected youth and teens would be by violence in video games and television, maybe even mature level dialogue and photos as seen on social media.
It's the same shoe for a different foot. They'll try to insist it's not the same, but it definitely is. They're fine with pretending iDubbbz's old content wasn't funny because it makes them look mature and grown up. But when you apply that logic to gaming, social media, and TV/movies, they panic.
Indeed, corrected the wayward youth of today's era could be by banning them from all social media, banned from R-rated movies and M-rated games. Out of GTA 5 and Call of Duty, we must get the squeakers.
Exactly, Yoda. If we did that, we wouldn't have to keep catering content that's clearly made for an adult and mature audience to these little bitches anymore.
We all know about the type of content Filthy Frank, iDubbbz, and Max used to make, and how that's made such a horrible group of people today. But YouTube hasn't been around that long compared to television and movies, so let's go back and look at the type of content we've consumed for the past 30 years and compare. We've had edgy stand-up comedians like old Eddie Murphy, Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, and Bob Saget. These dudes pretty much torched everything in their path while they were doing their stand-up routines, and nothing was sacred. I know I'm missing a lot more, so if you want to leave the names in the comments below, go ahead. This is all just off the top of my head, but almost all popular stand-up comedy from the 70s to the early Y2K era was pretty dirty, with only a few like Seinfeld being exceptions and being cleaner. Moving on, you got your TV shows and sitcoms. South Park, In Living Color, Mad TV, old seasons of The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead, and The Kids in the Hall. Again, I know I'm missing a lot here, but all of these shows had content that would make people lose their minds today. Finally, movies. You can include pretty much everything Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey did, Clerks 1 and 2, Farrelly Brothers movies like There's Something About Mary and American Pie with its sequels. Despite this barrage of edgy content in the past 30 years, everybody has grown up to mostly be normal.
But how? With such a barrage of content like that, grown up all of you should have been into turbo racist. Understand this, I do not.
Right now, it's cool to denounce this type of media in order to sound mature and grown up, with a lot of kids today thinking not using profanity, being family friendly, and acting like a hippie is an ideal societal position. Pretty crazy since a lot of Hollywood movies and media in the 90s and Y2K era celebrated the slacker and the loser who pushed against the grain.
Acting like a corporate stooge and selling out like a bitch. Preferred it is now to being cutting edge. Perhaps time it is to become one with the Force than to continue living in this shithole.
One of the weirdest things about the current day that we live in is how heavily society has been influenced by corporations into not only standing for them, but making them believe that selling out is actually a good thing. Complete 180 from the last 20 years where the public was taught to question everything they hear. People stopped watching TV shows back in the late 2000s because it was all reality TV garbage, and stuff on the internet like Newgrounds and YouTube was just much more entertaining. A lot of cable subscriptions around this time got dropped and much more people were moving into YouTube. The thing I loved the most about sites like YouTube during this time was I could watch videos made by people in certain niches that didn't have a whole lot of representation. Back then, there wasn't a lot of video game related content on TV at the time, so I really got into gaming channels. Now you got kids online standing hard for Disney, these random streaming shows with gay protagonists, and musicians who put out shit but get stand for being unproblematic, which is the stupidest goddamn thing I ever heard of. I don't want to listen to any musician who hasn't had multiple relationship problems, like actual ones, hasn't done drugs, and hasn't beaten anyone.
When I was 14, 5 or 6 years ago, I would actually say every slur in the book, actively name call fellow minority students and more. Now I've found myself in many of those minorities, but that doesn't repair the damage I did as a child while I was being influenced by these YouTubers.
Christ! And thought myself to be a retard as a child. Claim to be mature. How can you, when unable to accept responsibility for your own actions, and blame iDubbbz you do for your own stupid behavior?
He must live in an upscale neighborhood with some laid-back classmates, because doing something like that at the schools I went to might have gotten you jacked up. Now look, I'm not trying to claim I was a tough kid or anything like that, and none of the schools I went to were like the ones in Dangerous Minds or The Substitute, but we did have gangs and we did have cops coming into classrooms to bust some kids.
Believe, do you, that in a majority white school this young man went to, with one black child per class, and no razor wire on the fences?
Let me just say this, one of the things I was disappointed most about high school, and I can't explain why I was thinking like this, but my stupid ass was expecting it to be like, Saved by the Bell and those Disney shows. I thought the whole experience was going to be a huge improvement over middle school in some way, and my life was going to be like Zach or some shit like that. Boy, that was a goddamn lie. Fuck those shows.
Too late. Is it for the youth of today? Forever dancing on the puppet strings of influencers and corporations as they eat out of their hands, like a stupid parrot, eager for more.
We're stuck right now in a new moral panic era, except this time it's Zoomers pretending to be the moral arbiters, but in reality they've been suckered by corporations and politicians into being sellout little punks. Things will fix itself in time eventually when people have had enough and they've seen enough hypocrisy. It's okay to admit that content like old iDubbbz, Filthy Frank, and Max was funny, because it is. In fact, it's hilarious. It wasn't any worse than the rest of the media we've all watched in the past 30 years. All the stuff that's considered to be classics now, but we all gotta pretend it was immature and it went too far.
Enjoy it, I will, when the tide turns. And up the shut fuck! All of you will have to, forever!